Well, hello neighbors. It's been a little while. I thought today I would look at a Canadian whiskey from produced here in Walker, part of the Wiser group. Gooderham Worts, 4-grain whiskey. Catch you after the break. Well, so as I said in the intro, first it's been a while. It's good to be back. I've been fighting a cold. I think it's past now and I can actually begin to enjoy and taste whiskey again. And you know, we've seen the opening games of the Winter Olympics. A good competition for us northern countries, and I was feeling a bit patriotic, thought I should look at Canadian whiskey. So what I have today is Gooderham Worts 4-grain whiskey. This is blend A1129, and it's bottled at 44.4%. Actually, I think it's kind of fun that Don Livermore, master blender, and his group had a little bit of fun with this. You know, we've got our 4 grains. We have, you know, corn, rye, barley, and wheat. And it's bottled at 44.4%. I heard it was released in the LCBO in Ontario for $44 or something like that. I thought that was a lot of fun. Doing a little bit of research in Gooderham Worts. Oh, I meant to have Davin Kirkamo's book out. It's over there, I won't get it. It has great history on understanding the Canadian distilleries. And if I vaguely recall, but honestly, just look up CanadianWhiskey.org or look for Davin or his book. It'll tell you a bit about, you know, the Gooderham Worts story as millers and then distillers and then selling to Huron Walker and so on. I'm a little more interested in its current history, so I understand, though I really wasn't looking for Canadian whiskey when it came out, but that they tried Gooderham Worts, Lot 40, and a few others kind of at the end of the 90s, and they didn't take well. And now they're back. And you've heard me talk about Lot 40 before. Just a really great Canadian rye whiskey. And then I was reading about this Gooderham Worts 4-grain, and also, you know, picking up some decent reviews. So I went looking for it, and I thought I'd share my story with you a little bit while we're nosing and tasting this Canadian whiskey. I was looking for it. I said it had some good reviews, and I went down to Calgary. And on my way through, I stopped at Kensington Wine Market. I always do. Great folk, and they'll pour a sample of things that you might be interested in. And they had this, and they poured a sample, and I thought, it's okay. You know, it kind of didn't grab me as much as I'd expected because of what I'd heard. And then they'd poured, and that's why I have it here, a little bit of this Bernheim Original that was bottled specific, like it must be a cask pick for the Kensington Wine Market. And in comparison, you know, this wheat whiskey compared to the 4-grain in here was just so smooth, and it just really captured my attention. And I remember walking out thinking, oh, that's the right pick. And I took it up, enjoyed it. A couple months later, I grabbed this bottle. And when I first got into it, poured it a bit, you know, I find the nose a little bit rough. By rough, I mean there's spice, there's oak, but then it tumbles into be kind of smooth. At first, there's a bit of an alcohol. Now, I poured this about 20 minutes ago, and that does move along. So it's nice to pour it and leave it sit for a bit. And I just couldn't get into it. I remember thinking, man, I just not. But now, coming back to this, well, not back now, I'm saying after a few pours in, it's been nothing but sweet for the last half bottle. And I really like this whiskey. The nose, I just mentioned, you know, it's got some corn sweetness, but oak is there right away. It's a bit of floral notes, must be from rye. But it tumbles together. Now the nose intrigues me. Still, sometimes when I first pour this, the nose doesn't grab me as much as I want it to. Right now, it's quite nice. Give this a taste. Well, I think, no. For me, it's in the palate and finish that this whiskey comes alive. In the palate up front, you know, the first part of your mouth, if you're sipping carefully with your tongue, you're going to get that toffee, caramel, sugary notes. You know, when you think, oh yeah, there's definitely corn. You let it slide down for me, down into your mouth. The side of your mouth picks up, comes alive. For me, that's spicy, peppery. And then as it goes down the back of your throat, of course, if you've swallowed it, now we're talking about how it's coming around, how's the finish going, and that oak note just comes strongly through. Yeah, it's still confused on the nose is what I want to say. And there's still some alcohol edges. I have no idea what the ages are of the blends that they put in here. I don't even know the ratios. I'm going to say it's mostly corn, and then it's nicely peppered up with rye and given some body, some bready with wheat. The malt barley, very tough for me to pick out. It's you know, fairly coating. I should look for what kind of legs it shines on the glass. It's not overly oily. Yeah, but it seems to coat the glass fairly nicely. I'm sure you won't be able to pick that up on the video. But decent legs, hold together, doesn't droplet up. But I find the palate of this 4-grain whiskey quite interesting. In fact, after I got through the first bit, I know that sounds terrible, but really the first few pours, it kept tasting to me like a overly sugared rye, or maybe it was too young. I'm not sure. But as I got into this bottle, and I'll confess this is the only bottle I've had, so I don't know if there's any variation or whatnot. But I've come to really enjoy this whiskey. I would not pour it for someone who's hasn't had at least a few whiskeys to kind of create their library. It would be something that I would gladly pour for anyone who likes rye, or anyone who likes you know, peated Scotch. It's not peated or smoky in that way, but often if you like peated whiskey, you're a little more open to a range of flavors going on in your mouth. It's not. It's a little oakier and spicier than a lot of maybe traditional Canadian whiskeys that would have a smoother put together, a little oilier, a little smoother, a little sweeter blend going on. So I'd be careful with who I'd pour it for who likes Canadian whiskey. But I would say that if you give yourself time to let it open up, or you give yourself, you know, a few drinks. I don't mean in a night. I mean, you know, come back to it over a couple of months. I would venture to say that you'd find yourself enjoying this whiskey. I feel like I finally got to know it, and now I would love to keep this on my shelf for myself, and for guests, the right guests, but for myself. So it's one of these that I've now kind of fallen for, and like it. I think it's a great experiment. I really think if you're spending more time than I am on this cast with, and you're chewing it and you're thinking about it, and you really take your time, you're gonna find the different notes in here. You're gonna find, like now I'm getting some fruits, absolutely darker fruits, candied fruits, apricot even. And in the mouth, what a range, what a range. I like this. It's a solid 4 stars for me, probably higher, but it's still young. The alcohol still kind of comes around, makes itself known. But the variety of flavors, the nose, you can tell I can get many things out of it, but it's not my favorite part. My favorite part is the palate and the oaky, spicy finish. I like this. So yeah, like I said, Gooderham Worts, a nice Canadian whiskey to look at if you've had a few different whiskeys. you're looking to increase your palate. I should say about price, I can pick this up. I still know a store that carries it for $35. It's a steal at $35. I also know a store 2 blocks from here that carries it for $55. At $55, while I love this whiskey, it'd be hard for me to buy because it still does, it's got good flavors and whatnot, but now I'm a bit in the aftertaste and during, like you can just tell that it, they just took this blend and married it a little longer after in oak or something. I bet it would get rid of some of the things that put me off a little bit. But at any rate, at 55, it's a tough recommend. For the experience, I think maybe once I'd go for it, but at 35, it's a regular. I don't know what to say. Thanks for joining me, John, Whiskey Neighbor. It's so good to be on the healing edge of a cold. And oh, I want to say just at the end, this week I went online and I went on to 2 live casts or live events with some of the fellow YouTubers from the Whiskey Fabric, guys that I just really look up to and appreciate whenever they say hi. I just want to say that it's really intimidating to watch you guys work live. Here, yeah, I only do one take. I just sit down, I pour, and I give my thoughts. But in the end, it's just me. If I screw up, I can cut it out or not post it or something. But you guys in live, I was looking at Malted Montreal and Whiskey in the Six. You guys were hilarious. I didn't even know how to chime in. Felt like the last guy in the room to get a joke. And then I was watching Aquavite and Whiskey Whistle, Mark and Roy. And they were doing a trivia thing. I just popped in, and some of them I'm like, oh yeah, I got that. Oh yeah, I got that. And then some of them I didn't. I'm like, oh, how can I show my face on these live casts if I don't have the knowledge that you guys have or the humor? But I'm working up the nerve, and so at some point I'd love to do a live with one of you guys. Anyways, really good work, you guys. Thanks for anyone who tuned in and stayed with me till the end. This was a look at. I don't know who owns it. Like I know Corby puts out that core range, the Pike Creek, the Lot 40, the Gooderham Worts, and the JP Weiser. I know that Dr. Don Livermore and his team are kind of working on all of those. So I don't know if this is, it's distilled in Harriman Walker. It's owned or managed by Corby. It's owned by Pinot Richard. There's so many names. At any rate, Gooderham Worts, 4 grain. If you like a bit of an adventure, I think it's a decent whiskey. Okay, thanks guys. You take care. Bye.